First of all, General, thanks for your time.
It's an honor to be with you today.
ISAF coalition forces recently start an operation in eastern Afghanistan. Can you tell us about the goals and results of these operations?
Well, we're conducting operations on a regular basis. I think you may be talking about the operation that we undertook against the Haqqani network. We've been watching the Haqqani network for some time. As you know, it is based largely in Pakistan, but has been operating extensively in eastern Afghanistan, operating in Kabul. It has been responsible for a large number of the high-profile attacks, assassinations, and so on. We undertook operations with a substantial number of Afghan forces actually in the lead in a number of places to go after the network, to reduce their capabilities, knowing that on many occasions the Haqqanis go to a reduced operational tempo during the winter. We wanted to go after the network before winter, and it was a very successful several-day operation, and we believe that we put a dent in the network.
What type of measures you have to reduce the number of civilian casualties in these operations?
What do we do?
Yeah.
We have standing operating procedures to be very, very careful about the application of fires, whether they're aviation fires or they're ground fires. We're very careful when we identify targets. We go to great lengths to ensure that before we engage those targets, we are certain that it is the enemy. So we go to a lot of trouble. We go to a lot of difficulty to ensure that to the maximum extent we can, we reduce civilian casualties. One is too many for us. The tragedy, of course, of war is that there will be civilian casualties from time to time. And when we have them, we take action immediately to try to do the right thing for the family and to investigate thoroughly why that civilian casualty occurred.
General, most Afghans think that when you start these type of operations, so the Taliban fled to the Pakistan and to their sanctuaries. So do you think if it's continue, so the result of this operation would be none, because you cannot achieve your goals if Taliban fled to Pakistan?
Well, we took measures in this particular operation to ensure that they didn't flee. We arrayed forces, again, your forces and our forces were arrayed along the border to ensure that as they attempted to get back into Pakistan, they couldn't. And so that's part of the thinking behind an operation that is a comprehensive operation, and this one was a comprehensive operation.
But what about the Haqqani network people who are still have their sanctuaries inside Pakistan?
Well, they'll continue to rest, and they'll train, and they'll come back. As you know, based on the authorities invested in the commander of International Security Assistance Force, ISAF, I have no authorities to operate in Pakistan. But I have authorities in conjunction with Afghanistan and Afghan forces to conduct operations inside Afghanistan. And in partnership with your forces, when we detect the Haqqanis operating in the east, and it's not just the Haqqanis, it's others as well, we'll take action against them. So inside Afghanistan, we will take action against the Haqqanis.
Yeah. What about the Pakistani army support in a war against terror? Because Pakistan is one of the most important ally of the United States in a war against terror.
Well, this is an important question. It's a regional question, not just a question with respect to Pakistan or to Afghanistan. It's a regional question. It's important to understand that Pakistan is also under attack by terrorists as well. In just the last 2 years, the Pakistani army has sustained over 3,000 dead, probably about 10,000 wounded. There have been some 20 to 30,000 Pakistani civilians who've been killed or wounded by the terrorists in that country. And so there are reasons why the Pakistani army wants to operate against the terrorists as well. Now, I talk with General Kayani, the chief of the army staff of the Pakistani military, on a regular basis. Not long ago, we had a meeting where General Karimi, the chief of defense of the Afghan army, and I and General Kayani had a meeting where we began discussions about cooperating across the border in order for all of us to be able to achieve operational advantage against the terrorists. And I think we've made good progress in that regard.
According to the media reports, the trust deficit among the U.S. government in Pakistan is very high. Recently, Secretary Clinton traveled to Pakistan, and she asked Pakistan to act against the Haqqani networks, not on a months or years, on a day or weeks. So how could you see how much progress you have been made in terms of the fighting against the Taliban sanctuaries inside Pakistan?
Well, we're going to work together on this. We're going to find common ground where Afghanistan, ISAF forces, and Pakistan will be able to operate against the common enemy that we have. And terrorism and extremism is a common enemy for all three of us. We've had operations, frankly, in the last couple of years. We've not had any since I've been here, but we're going to plan one, where the Pakistanis will attack the terrorists on their side of the border, and we will be ready. We, the ISAF forces and our Afghan partners, will be ready when the terrorists come across, and we'll deal with them. We'll deal with them very quickly. That's an operation that has occurred before here. It was actually quite successful. We've had operations on our side of the border, on the Afghan side of the border, where ISAF and Afghan forces have driven the enemy across the border into the Pakistani military, and they have dealt very quickly with the terrorists. So we need to seek opportunities where our three entities, ISAF with the country of Afghanistan and Pakistan, we need to seek opportunity where we can take advantage of our common interests to attack extremism and to attack the terrorists that are along the borders.
General, but it seems that the Pakistan authorities are not ready to take action against the Taliban sanctuaries in North Waziristan, especially which most people think that the Haqqani network safe havens, considered as a safe haven for the Haqqani network. So what can you do if Pakistan is not ready to take action against these groups?
I don't know that Pakistan isn't ready, and that's a question you really need to ask Islamabad. But in the conversations that I've had with General Kayani, he's made it clear to me that he's ready to cooperate. Now, what that means, we still need to have discussions. But as we know, there have been recent explosions in Miram Shah where elements of the Haqqani network have been attacked. I think that there is real opportunity for us to see common opportunity, the Pakistani military, ISAF, and the Afghan military, to have common interest to go after the Haqqanis. We don't go across the border, and we won't go across the border. We'll leave that to the Pakistani military. But the Pakistani military, I believe, as an arm of the Pakistani government, recognize that eventually they have to take action, or these terrorists will turn on Pakistan as well. And so we have conversations, the three generals together, with the idea of creating opportunities in the future where we can cooperate to deal with these enemies.
How would it be difficult for you, General, in your job? Because if Pakistan did not take measures against these groups, so then the war in Afghanistan would be getting more longer.
Well, I don't know that it'll be longer, but I think it will be difficult. We will have to deal with the borders for a long time. What that means is that how the Afghan military forces are ultimately deployed on the ground for long periods of time may require that we all think differently about where the border police are deployed, how thick those units will be along the border, where the Afghan military might have to be deployed, how we would array the rapidly moving, they're like cavalry units that the Afghan military is gaining soon, how we can move those rapidly moving forces near the border so that we can thicken the defense along the Pakistani border to deal with those terrorists as they come across. It doesn't mean it's going to take longer necessarily, but it might mean we have to think differently about how the Afghan forces are ultimately deployed inside Afghanistan.
General, the issue of the strategic partnership between Afghanistan and U.S. government, for Afghan government, it's a big deal. But can you share with us or tell us that which type of commitment the U.S. will have to the Afghan people to that strategic partnership?
Well, we think it's a big deal too. It's a very important agreement between the United States and Afghanistan. First, for us, we have always viewed that Afghanistan is a vital partner of the United States, an equal partner, a partner for whom we have great respect, a partner whose sovereignty is important to us, and the strategic partnership is a logical extension of that feeling that we have for Afghanistan. So it's an important agreement for us in the end. But it also has to be important for Afghanistan as well, and so we'll continue to have negotiations and move this thing, hopefully, to a successful completion. Now, what that means in terms of an operational relationship with Afghanistan is there will be a government-to-government relationship. I think it will create the opportunities for excellent economic relationships as well. There will probably be a security relationship that will emerge from the strategic partnership. And we would anticipate, in the United States, we would anticipate agreeing with Afghanistan for some form of a U.S. presence in Afghanistan for some period of time. How we view that now is that that presence, and again, we have to agree, America is not going to stay here if Afghanistan does not desire for us to stay here. That's first and foremost. It's an important thing for everyone to understand. We're here as your friend, and we'll stay here as your friend as long as you want us to. But if we agree to stay, if we agree between our two countries that a long-term U.S. military presence is important to Afghanistan, it will almost certainly be a presence designed here to help to continue the growth of your military, the professionalization of your military, and that's coming along extraordinarily well, actually, and conceivably to help Afghanistan fight terrorism. And so that's probably how we will ultimately stay in Afghanistan. We'll be as advisors, trainers, and with some special operations capability to help Afghanistan protect itself from terrorism.
General, in case of signing that alliance, so the U.S. Congress will endorse that alliance or not?
I'm not involved in that aspect of it. Ultimately, we believe that the strategic partnership will be a binding agreement, but that's not a part of my involvement. And that's a great question to ask Ambassador Crocker.
Yes. So, General, if in case Afghanistan attacked by one of his neighboring countries, so in terms of that agreement or strategic partnership, the U.S. forces in Afghanistan will allow to help Afghans?
Well, we haven't completed the negotiations, and much still remains to be done. So rather than to speculate on a hypothetical question, let's go ahead and complete the strategic partnership, and then we can have that discussion.
So if also one more thing that we have in next week we will have the Jirga. So if they ask or if they advise the government to do not sign that, so then in that case what might happen?
Well, again, that's an Afghan issue. You know, the Loya Jirga is an important dimension of who you are. It's a great tradition. It's a great Afghan tradition of governance and advice to the leadership of this country. We would hope that if presented, the logic of the strategic partnership would be clear to the great Afghans who will be representing their people and their tribes and their constituencies at the Jirga. But once again, in the end, the decision to engage in a strategic partnership with the United States is an Afghan decision. And however you come to that decision, we will respect it.
Yes. General, recently, last week, you sacked one of your top general, especially on his remarks about calling President Karzai erratic and isolated from the realities. Why did you think that General Fuller's comments were not matched the reality?
Well, first, we don't believe that. First, we're guests in your country. We're partners in a war. We seek every day to be valued partners in advancing the mutual goals of our two countries, developing the Afghan National Security Forces, and in that partnership, there has to be trust. Now, that trust means that Afghans with whom we will fight alongside on the battlefield should never wonder in their minds how we really feel about them. My own personal respect for President Karzai is great. My personal respect for Minister Wardak, Minister Mohammadi, Director Nabil, all of your forces is great. And when we speak in a disrespectful manner, I don't want anyone in this country to wonder how U.S. forces truly believe and truly feel, and ISAF forces as well, how they truly feel about Afghanistan as partners, the leadership of Afghanistan as being the elected leadership of this country, and its military forces ultimately as the folks with whom we will shoulder up on the battlefield and take casualties together. I don't want anyone to wonder about that. Those comments were inappropriate, and as a result of that, I reassigned him out of the battle space.
How much you worry, General, that some it might be some other colleagues, your generals, will also think on the same ways?
Well, I don't know what they think. What I only know is what they say. And what they say, if it's disrespectful, if it's inappropriate, if it harms the relationship, I'm going to hold them accountable.
General, it's argued that Ambassador Crocker and you have a great relation with President Karzai. So what do you think, how to use this better relationship to make a progress on a good governance, fighting corruption, and also solve the other issues that Afghanistan faces?
Well, Afghanistan faces many issues. You know, the people of Afghanistan have known nothing but war now for a generation. And as a young country, even though Afghanistan is an ancient country, its new system of government is young. You have come to democracy just recently. There will be figures in the history of these countries as they look back over time that created the conditions for success. And I think in many respects President Karzai has done that. You know, he has been at this business a long time in one of the hardest jobs on the planet, being the president of Afghanistan, as we have sought to end this insurgency, create stability, create the conditions for peace and prosperity in this country. And he's been a central figure in all of that for so many years. I'd like to leverage the relationship that I have with him to do all that I can to support him as the president, to support your government, to support your people, to end this insurgency, to create an Afghan national security force for which your people can be proud, and a national security force that will defend them against the enemy, but also defend them against corruption. And we've had great conversations with President Karzai. He has created initiatives whereby we can begin to partner together on the issue of corruption. He is committed to ending corruption. And I really enjoy my relationship.
Did you really think, General, that President Karzai and his government is tough or honest on fighting against the corruption?
Oh, I believe so. Listen, there's corruption in every country in the world. The question isn't whether there's corruption. The question is whether you're willing to do something about it. And the conversations I've had with him in the short 100 days that I've been here, his commitments to create a presidential executive commission to begin the process of dealing with corruption. We didn't get to the point of corruption in Afghanistan in one day, and we won't solve it in one day. This is a long journey, and we're taking the first steps of that long journey together, and I believe he's committed to it.
Yeah, but what about the Afghan people? They are getting frustrated because they didn't see any result, and they constantly ask to measures against the corruption. So how do you think about the Afghan people?
Well, I think the Afghan people deserve answers. And I believe that we need to communicate those answers clearly. When I say we, I mean not just ISAF, but the Afghan government. The Afghan government should be proud of the actions that it's beginning to take. And I think the Afghan people ought to have the opportunity for the government to explain the measures that they're beginning to take about corruption. Again, we didn't arrive here in one day, and we're not going to depart here in one day. And so it's really important that all of us communicate to the Afghan people clearly what measures are being taken ultimately to resolve corruption. And it's not going to be resolved overnight. Yeah. It's going to take a long time.
But General, how much you will use your good relation with President Karzai to persuade him to fight against corruption?
Well, I don't have to persuade him. He's already committed to a number of measures that we'll work together to ultimately reduce the effects of corruption and to reduce the absolute dimension of corruption. Some of that is our law enforcement agencies continuing to work closely with yours to increase their capabilities. It's our members of our judiciary working closely with your rule of law professionals, judges, prosecutors, to improve the ability to prosecute cases. It's our sharing of information and intelligence on criminal patronage networks and criminal capture of various Afghan institutions and entities. He's committed to taking all of that help. And some of the finest investigative units that I have seen in my many years in uniform are Afghan units that are investigating narcotics, that are investigating organized crime. And they've been successful since I've been here in some very spectacular ways. And I think the Afghan people should know about that. And I think they'd be very proud of some of their investigative capabilities and the beginnings, I think, of some important judicial capabilities that will help the Afghan rule of law ultimately take ascendancy above these criminal networks.
So, General, did you consider President Karzai as a trustable and reliable ally to the U.S. government?
I do.
General, one more thing. President Karzai has been calling the U.S. government for such a long time to attack Taliban safe havens and sanctuaries inside Pakistan. So, when would you listen to him?
I listen to him every day. I listen to him several times a week. I understand his frustration. He deserves to be frustrated on the fact that there are safe havens in Pakistan. But that's a discussion that he needs to have with Islamabad, and I know he's having it. I know that the U.S. government is supporting his concerns in discussions with Islamabad. We just all need to create a regional partnership here to get after this. I cannot, because of the nature of my mandate, conduct military operations in Pakistan. That's not in the cards. And of course, President Karzai and I have had conversations about how we can partner better inside the borders of a sovereign Afghanistan to defeat the insurgency. And he's committed to bringing peace and stability to Afghanistan. But we've got to have a common vision with Pakistan, ultimately on pressuring or squeezing those networks inside Pakistan to ensure that the insurgents there don't feel as though they have complete impunity inside Pakistan and that their existence there is threatened as well. That's really where we want to end up in our relationship with Pakistan. And we're having those conversations now.
General, what do you think about the reconciliation with the Taliban? Did you think the Taliban or networks like Haqqani are reconcilable?
I don't know about the Haqqani network, frankly. It's hard for me to say. But I have confidence, and I am not involved, and I must say right up front, I am not involved in reconciliation talks. There are Afghan leaders, and there are diplomats who are. But I do believe that there are segments within the Taliban who are ready to come back to Afghanistan, who are ready to accept the Afghan constitution, to sever their ties with al-Qaeda, to renounce violence, and to be part of the future. They don't want to be part of the past. They don't want to be part of the darkness that was the Taliban darkness of the 90s in this country. Look how far Afghanistan has come in these 10 years. And the Afghan people shouldn't tolerate it either. So I believe that there are elements of the Taliban leadership who are very interested in having reconciliation talks. But I don't know how many are in the Haqqani network. And I'm not so sure, given the way the Haqqanis have attacked the Afghan people, they've attacked the government of Afghanistan, how they've attacked Kabul, whether we'll ever be able to have conversations.
General, many Afghans are worried that the 2014 means less money to be pumped into the Afghanistan and weaker economy in a few businesses. How do you see post-2014 U.S. economic assistance to Afghanistan?
That's hard to say. Right now, of course, I'm a military commander, so it's hard for me to speak for the American economy or for me to predict what the U.S. policy will be in 2014. I do know this, though, and that is that the U.S. government, this president, this administration, and the people of the United States are certainly committed to the Afghan people. They may have an opinion about the war, but they are certainly committed to the Afghan people and to the country of Afghanistan as a nation. And we want to help Afghanistan for a long time. And it's not just the United States. You know, the 49 partner nations of NATO ISAF, many of them are interested in remaining close to Afghanistan for many years past 2014 and contributing not just to Afghanistan's military, but very importantly, contributing to the success of Afghanistan's government and very importantly, contributing to the success of Afghanistan's economy. So I am optimistic that the international community will remain committed to Afghanistan. How much, what that means in terms of financial support, political support, that remains to be determined. You know, Afghanistan just came out of a very successful conference in Istanbul, a regional conference. It demonstrated Afghan leadership in the region. We're headed for one in Bonn in early December, where once again, Afghanistan, President Karzai, key ministers of the Afghan government will have the opportunity to demonstrate international leadership yet again. And this is important. These are really important moments in the history of Afghanistan, where it will be emerging onto the world stage, not as a dependency of the international community, but a partner of the international community. And I think that's a really important moment for us.
Yeah. General, my last question is, how January 2015 would look like in terms of the U.S. military footprint in Afghanistan?
It's hard to say. We are beginning that planning now. First, as I said, we will be here only if we both agree that the U.S. forces should remain. And should we both agree, Afghanistan and the United States, probably the U.S. footprint in Afghanistan is that we would be on a shared base. We would share a base with Afghan forces, so we would not create our own bases here. We would share them with you. And very likely the forces that we would have here would be oriented on training and advising your forces, intending to increase the professionalization, the professionalism of your forces. We probably have some forces here that would help you in the event that you'd need them, in the event that the insurgency were to become apparent again somewhere in Afghanistan, like helicopters, medevac capabilities, some medical assistance. We'd probably have some capability here to improve your intelligence gathering and intelligence processing capabilities. And then we'd probably have some special operations capability. You know, some of the finest commandos I have ever seen wear the Afghan flag on their right sleeve. They are fine, fine warriors. And we would like to remain partnered with them, continuing to increase their capabilities, and if necessary, join them in defeating extremism or terrorism that may come to rest once again in Afghanistan. And that's probably what you'll see in 2015. Advisors, trainers, some people to enable Afghan operations, some intelligence building capabilities, and some special operators. But that all remains to be determined.
General, thank you very much for your time.
It's an honor to be with you today, and it's an honor to serve in Afghanistan, in this great country with these great people. Thank you.
Thank you.